want to be the star in the movie of my life, a blockbuster tearjerker comedy. It's not because I'm vain, oh Mitch, you're so cute, or hungry for the fame. It's just because there's so much you could learn from me. I'm in trouble once again. I'm too crazy, too insane. I need some biofeedback for my brain. Need some biofeedback for my brain. I want to be in charge, get some money, a new start, a job worth enough to remove the fear. But every time I work, my children fall apart. So I quit and move on to the next career. Child to child to child, heal the world with style. Happiness gone wild, healing child to child to child. Don't you just hate it when Mr. Right turns out to be wrong? And that makes you Mrs. Wrong, because you married him. Like my first husband. One night he left for work and forgot to come home. No matter how many times I called to remind him, he just kept forgetting. And he didn't even have Alzheimer's. I got a second Mr. Right, but he turned out to be the second Mr. Wrong, which made me Mrs. Wrong again. Oh, I wrote a song about it. I'm wearing second-hand shoes, pretend. Second-hand clothes. That's why I call me second-hand Rose. 'Cause the man I married on my second go-round gave me gonorrhea from my second-hand dose. I got a second-hand dose. You never get a single thing that's new. If I wasn't so afraid she'd say no, I could have just asked my well-to-do mom for money. Well, she could ask me for money, but it's not as if I'd give it to her. Oh, come on now, woman. You always were too materialistic. Lighten up. Death's brought some dollars to your door. Sometimes I think I died because it was easier than a divorce. My little brother was murdered. He was beaten and thrown off a third-story balcony. He lay in a coma for days alone. Nobody knew, so nobody came. Maybe because he didn't have any sister at his side. Maybe that's why he didn't survive. Yeah, I've had a lot of experience. Maybe too much. Don't you just hate that? Life-numbing experience caused by so much pain that you just can't feel it anymore. So God ups the ante till it's big enough to see, even in the dark. Don't you just hate it when monsters grow in the dark and they're your husband? Don't you just hate it when your husband molests your daughter? And it's after her 13th birthday, so according to the DA, that means it's not much of a crime. And he only spends one day in jail, and then he gets out and wins the lottery. Don't you just hate that? Man, I hated it. Yes, it's true, I used to be a slut. But I'm not a slut anymore.
I know what Zeus looks like. I watch Hercules. And I even thought, hey, maybe I could start liking my mother. Right about then, she found out she had a brain tumor. When the doctors took it out, they said she probably had it for 15 years. It made her very cranky. Till they took it out. Then she was only a little bit cranky. And I realized I should never have been judging her. After all, I'm a feisty little pumpkin myself. Maybe I have a brain tumor.
And so I want to tell you a couple of quick stories about my family. First of all, Shay, the one who's laughing right here. Shay has taught me some awesome things. Shay, when he was little, was autistic. You know, he was about 3 years old, and he didn't, no, I guess he was almost 4. And he wasn't talking, and he was like, and he loved to play with sticky substances on the top of his lips. And, he loved Thomas the Train to distraction. And we were pretty sure that he was autistic. He was always walking on his toes, and he would look at our noses instead of our eyes. And I was watching him, and I thought, maybe total communication would be the way to fix this child's speech problems. So I don't know why. We never did it with anyone else. Just something about him, and that idea made sense. So we all went and took lessons and learned sign language, and we started doing it up around our faces in this really exciting way, because the idea was to get him to look over here and find it fun and get excited by the idea of language. And it worked like a miracle. 6 months after we started, Shay was completely age appropriate in his verbal skills. And so when my grandson was born, he was 5 months old. He was one of the kids that got their inoculations right out of the womb. It was this new thing they were trying. Oh, lovely. Anyways, so he got his inoculation 5 months later. He's twisting his body away so that he can't make eye contact. He can't sit up, but he can contort his body to not be touched and not look in your eyes. And I'm like, that looks like autism to me. So we didn't waste any time. We didn't go look for diagnosis or anything. We just devised a plan, and it was based on Elvis Presley. We picked him up, and we'd move him around, and we'd stimulate those mirror neurons, and every time he twisted away, we'd move him into another position until our arms ached, and we'd pass him off, and the next person would do it. And we'd do it, and we'd do it, and we'd do it, and 6 months later, he was comfortable in his own skin. So I want to talk about Dar, who's the one that's actually still very, very, very autistic. And the reason for that is because if he is changed and affected to the degree that he has been by this therapy, then it must be more than a situation of misdiagnosis. I was still looking for something better, something that would be more powerful. And I heard about neurofeedback. So I went and I thought, well, we'll try it, and I took him in, and he did a few sessions, and at first there was some pretty exciting things happen. There were subtle little things, but I'd seen little things in other therapies before, and then they would fall away. So he'd start to change, and then he'd just stop. So I was like holding on, kind of holding my breath, thinking, okay, well, we'll give it a little longer, So this man, had always held his hands like this. He hadn't been able to open his hands to touch people. So he'd always held his hands like that. And I remember when he was little, when I'd hold him, and he'd hold his body away like this and his hands like this. And I would just think, oh my gosh, if he could just hug me. And one time I was holding somebody else's kid, and she folded her body into mine. I was like, oh, if my son would do that, that would be all I would ever ask for. So it was about 3 weeks into the neurofeedback. We came in, I would take my coat off, and I'd turn around, and my son just wrapped his body around me. And he put the palms of his hands on my back. So I have cure stories. But that's better. And here are these kids. So much autism gives this world an opportunity to change, to reprioritize, and to see that the way into these children's hearts is through love. And it's not such a crazy idea, by the way. Changing the world by changing autism. I already know that that's a healing gift because it healed me and it made me rich, rich, rich.